Hi, I'm Joey Haber from the Flying Tortoise Academy in Portland, Oregon, and welcome to another daily Gong Fu workout. Today we're going to go over the Chung Bagua stance in single leg again, as well as reviewing some of our lifting and rolling movements with stepping patterns added on. We're also going to do our ShuiJiao hips and backs as always, and I think that's about it for today. Hope you're all doing well. If you have any questions, let me know.
Shaw stared at the waveform, terrified. It's not a malfunction. Wong's tone was exceedingly calm. He had learned to control himself when faced with such sights. "Oh, almost soon enough," Shaw said. He went to the other two terminals and typed rapidly to bring up the data gathered by the other two satellites, WMAP and Planck. Now, three waveforms moved in sync across the three terminals, exactly alike. Shaw took out a notebook computer and rushed to turn it on. He plugged in a network cable and picked up the phone. Wong could tell from the one-sided conversation that he was trying to get in touch with the Urumqi Radio Astronomy Observatory. He didn't explain to Wong what he was doing. His eyes locked onto the browser window on the notebook. Wong could hear his rapid breathing. A few minutes later, a red waveform appeared in the browser window, moving in step with the other three. The three satellites and the ground-based observatory confirmed one fact. The universe was flickering. "Can you print out the waveform?" Wong asked. Shaw wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and nodded. He moved his mouse and clicked print. Wong grabbed the first page as soon as it came out of the laser printer, and with a pencil began to match the distance between the peaks with the Morse code chart he took out of his pocket. Short, long, 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 long. Short, long, 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 long. Long, 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 long. Long, 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 short, short. Long, 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 short, short, short. Short, short, long, long, long. Short, long, 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 long. Long, 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 short, short, short. Short, 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 long, long. Long, long, short, short, short. That's 1108:21:37. Wong thought. Short, long, 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 long. Short, long, 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 long. Long, 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 long. Long, 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 short, short. Long, 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 short, short, short. Short, short, long, long, long. Short, long, 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 long. Long, 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 short, short, short. Short, 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 long, long. Long, short, 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 short. That's 1108:21:36. The countdown continued at the scale of the universe. 92 hours had already elapsed, and only 1,108 hours remained. Shaw paced back and forth anxiously, pausing from time to time to look at the sequence of numbers Wong was writing down. "Can't you tell me what's going on?" he shouted. "I can't possibly explain this to you, Dr. Shaw. Trust me." Wong pushed away the pile of papers filled with waveforms. As he stared at the sequence of numbers, he said, "Maybe the three satellites and the observatory are all malfunctioning." "You know that's impossible." "What if it's sabotage?" "Also impossible. To simultaneously alter the data from three satellites and an observatory on Earth? You're talking about a supernatural saboteur." Wong nodded. Compared to the idea of the universe flickering, he would prefer a supernatural saboteur. But Shaw then deprived him of this last glimmer of hope. "It's easy to confirm this. If the cosmic microwave background is fluctuating this much, we should be able to see it with our own eyes." "What are you talking about? The wavelength of the cosmic microwave background is 7 centimeters. That's 5 orders of magnitude longer than the wavelength of visible light. How can we possibly see it?" "Using 3K glasses." 3K glasses? "It's a sort of science toy we made for the Capitol Planetarium. With our current level of technology, we could take the 6-meter horn antenna used by Penzias and Wilson almost half a century ago to discover the cosmic microwave background and miniaturize it to the size of a pair of glasses. Then we added a converter in the glasses to compress the detected radiation by 5 orders of magnitude so that 7-centimeter waves are turned into visible red light. This way visitors can put on the glasses at night and observe the cosmic microwave background on their own. And now we can use it to see the universe flicker." "Where can I find these glasses?" "At the Capitol Planetarium. We made more than 20 pairs. I must get my hands on a pair before 5. Shaw picked up the phone. The other side picked up only after a long while. Shaw had to expend a lot of energy to convinced the person awakened in the middle of the night to go to the planetarium and wait for Wong's arrival in an hour. As Wong left, Shaw said, "I won't go with you. What I've seen is enough, and I don't need any more confirmation. But I hope that you will explain the truth to me when you feel the time is right. If this phenomenon should lead to some research result, I won't forget you." Wong opened the car door and said, "The flickering will stop at 5 in the morning. I'd suggest you not pursue it after this. Believe me, you won't get anywhere." Shaw stared at Wong for a long time, and then nodded. "I understand.
External rotation.
Strange things have been happening to scientists lately." "Yes." Wong ducked into the car. He didn't want to discuss the subject any further. "Is it our turn?" "It's my turn, at least." Wong started the engine. An hour later, Wong arrived at the new planetarium and got out of the car. The bright lights of the city penetrated the translucent walls of the immense glass building and dimly revealed its internal structure. Wong thought that if the architect had intended to express a feeling about the universe, the design was a success. The more transparent something was, the more mysterious it seemed. The universe itself was transparent. As long as you were sufficiently sharp-eyed, you could see as far as you liked. But the farther you looked, the more mysterious it became. The sleepy-eyed planetarium staffer was waiting by the door for Wong. He handed him a small suitcase and said, "There are 5 pairs of 3K glasses in there, all fully charged. The left button switches it on. The right dials for adjusting brightness. I have a dozen more pairs upstairs. You can look as much as you like, but I'm going to take a nap now in the room over there. Oh, this Dr. Shaw must be mental." He went into the dim interior of the planetarium. Wong opened the suitcase on the back seat of his car and took out a pair of 3K glasses. It resembled the display inside the panoramic viewing helmet of the V-suit. He put the glasses on and looked around. The city looked the same as before, only dimmer. Then he remembered that he had to switch them on. The city turned into many hazy, glowing halos. Most were fixed, but a few flickered or moved. He realized that these were sources of radiation in the centimeter range, all now converted to visible light. At the heart of each halo was a radiation source. Because the original wavelengths were so long, it was impossible to see their shapes clearly. He lifted his head and saw a sky glowing with a faint red light. Just like that, he was seeing the cosmic microwave background. The red light had come from more than 10 billion years ago. It was the remnants of the Big Bang, the still warm embers of creation. He could not see any stars. Normally, since visible light would be compressed to invisible by the glasses, each star should appear as a black dot. But the diffraction of centimeter wave radiation overwhelmed all other shapes and details. Once his eyes had grown used to the sight, Wong could see that the faint red background was indeed pulsing.
Internal rotation.
The entire sky flickered, as if the universe was but a quivering lamp in the wind. Standing under the flashing dome of the night sky, Wong suddenly felt the universe shrink until it was so small that only he was imprisoned in it. The universe was a cramped heart, and the red light that suffused everything was the translucent blood that filled the organ. Suspended in the blood, he saw that the flickering of the red light was not periodic. The pulsing was irregular. He felt a strange, perverse, immense presence that could never be understood by human intellect. Wong took off the 3K glasses and sat down weakly on the ground, leaning against the wheel of his car. The city at night gradually recovered the reality of visible light, but his eyes roamed, trying to capture other sights. By the entrance of the zoo across the street, there was a row of neon lights. One of the lights was about to burn out and flickered irregularly. Nearby, a small tree's leaves trembled in the night breeze, twinkling without pattern as they reflected streetlight. In the distance, the red star atop the Beijing Exhibition Center's Russian-style spire reflected the light from the cars passing below. also twinkling randomly. Wang tried to interpret the flickers as Morse code. He even felt that the wrinkles in the flags flapping next to him and the ripples in the puddle on the side of the road might be sending him messages. He struggled to understand all the messages and felt the passing of the countdown second by second. He didn't know how long he stayed there. The planetarium staffer finally emerged and asked him whether he was done. But when he saw Wang's face, sleep disappeared from the staffer's eyes and was replaced by fear. He packed up the 3K
Figure
glasses,
8 internal
stared
rotations.
at Wang for a few seconds, and quickly left with the suitcase. Wang took out his mobile and dialed Shen Yufei's number. She picked up right away. Perhaps she was also suffering from insomnia. "What happens at the end of the countdown?" Wang asked. "I don't know." She hung up. "What can it be? Maybe my own death, like Yang Dong's. Or maybe it will be a disaster, like the great tsunami that swept through the Indian Ocean more than a decade ago. No one will connect it to my nanotech research. Could it be that every previous great disaster, including the 2 world wars, was also the result of reaching the end of ghostly countdowns? Could it be that every time there was someone like me, who no one thought of, who bore the ultimate responsibility? Or maybe it signals the end of the whole world. In this perverse world, that would be a relief." One thing was
Drawing and
certain.
pulling.
No matter
Hips
what
first,
was at the
hands
end of the
second.
countdown, in the remaining 1,000 or so hours, the possibilities would torture him cruelly, like demons, until he suffered a complete mental breakdown. Wang ducked back into the car and left the planetarium. Just before dawn, the roads were relatively empty, but he didn't dare to drive too fast, feeling that the faster the car moved, the faster the countdown would go. When a glimmer of light appeared in the eastern sky, he parked and walked around aimlessly. His mind was empty of thoughts. Only the countdown pulsed against the dim red background of cosmic radiation. He seemed to have turned into nothing but a simple timer, a bell that tolled for he knew not whom. The sky brightened. He was
Okay, so
tired,
stepping.
so he sat down
Hips
on the
initiate.
bench. When he lifted his head to see where his subconscious had brought him, he shivered. He sat in front of St. Joseph's Church at Wang Fu Tsing. In the pale white light of dawn, the church's Romanesque vaults appeared as 3 giant fingers, pointing out something in space for him. As Wang got up to leave, he was held back by a snippet of hymnal music. It wasn't Sunday, so it was likely a choir rehearsal. The song was "Come, Gracious Spirit, Heavenly Dove." As he listened to the solemn, sacred music, Wang Miao once again felt that the universe had shrunk until it was the size of an empty church. The domed ceiling was hidden by the flashing red light of the background radiation, and he was an ant crawling through the cracks in the floor. He felt a giant, invisible hand caressing his trembling heart, and he was once again a helpless babe. Something deep in his mind that had once held him up softened like wax and collapsed. He covered his eyes and began to cry. Wang's cries were interrupted by laughter. "Another one bites the dust." He turned around. Captain ShuiJiao stood there, blowing out a mouthful of white smoke. 10. Da Shu. Shu sat down next to Wang and handed him his car keys.
Sorry.
"You parked right at the intersection of Dongdan. If I'd arrived just a minute later, the traffic cops would have had it towed." "Dasha, if I had known you were following me, I would have been comforted," Wang thought, switching to ShuiJiao's familiar nickname in his mind, though self-respect made him hold back the words. He accepted a cigarette from Da Shu, lit it, and took his first drag since he quit several years ago.
Slicing.
"So, how's it going, buddy?
Internal
Finding
rotation.
it hard to bear? I said you couldn't handle it, and you insisted on playing the tough guy." understand. Wong took several more deep puffs. Your problem is you understand too well. Fine. Let's go grab a bite. I'm not hungry. Then we'll go drinking. My treat. Wong got into Dasha's car, and they drove to a small restaurant nearby. It was still early, and the place was deserted. 2 orders of quick fried tripe and a bottle of Erguato, Dasha shouted, without even looking up. He was obviously a regular here. As he stared at the 2 plates filled with black slices of tripe, Wong's empty stomach began to churn, and he thought he was going to be sick. Dasha ordered him some warm soy milk and fried pancakes, and Wong forced himself to eat some. Then they drank shots of Erguato. He began to feel lightheaded, and his tongue loosened. Gradually, he recounted the events of the last 3 days to Dasha, even though he knew that Dasha probably knew everything already. Maybe Dasha even knew more than he did. You're saying that the universe was winking at you? Dasha asked, as he slurped down strips of tripe like noodles. That's a very appropriate metaphor. Bullshit! Your lack of fear is based on your ignorance. More bullshit! Go, drink! Wong finished another shot. Now the world was spinning around him, and only the tripe-chomping ShuiJiao across from him remained stable. He said, Dasha, have you ever considered certain ultimate philosophical questions? For example, where does man come from? Where does man go? Where does the universe come from? Where does the universe go, etc.? Nope. Never? Never. You must see the stars. Aren't you awed and curious? I never look at the sky at night. How is that possible? I thought you often worked the night shift. Buddy, when I work at night, if I look up at the sky, the suspect is gonna escape. We really have nothing to say to each other. All right. Drink. To be honest, even if I were to look at the stars in the sky, I wouldn't be thinking about your philosophical questions. I have too much to worry about. I gotta pay the mortgage, save for the kids' college, and handle the endless stream of cases. I'm a simple man without a lot of complicated twists and turns. Look down my throat and you can see out my ass. Naturally, I don't know how to make my bosses like me. Years after being discharged from the army, my career is going
stance a single
nowhere.
leg.
If I weren't pretty good at my job, I would have been kicked out a long time ago. You think that's not enough for me to worry about? You think I've got the energy to gaze at stars and philosophize? You're right. All right, drink up. But I did indeed invent an ultimate rule. Tell me. Anything sufficiently weird must be fishy. What kind of crappy rule is that? I'm saying that there's always someone behind things that don't seem to have an explanation. If you had even basic knowledge of science, you'd know it's impossible for any force to accomplish the things I experienced. Especially that last one. To manipulate things at the scale of the universe? Not only can you not explain it with our current science, I couldn't even imagine how to explain it outside of science. It's more than supernatural. It's I don't know what. I'm telling you that's bullshit. I've seen plenty of weird things. Then tell me what I should do next. Keep on drinking. And then sleep. Fine. Wang Miao had no idea how he got back into his car. He tumbled into the back seat and fell into a dreamless slumber. He didn't think that he was asleep for long, but when he opened his eyes, the sun was already near the horizon in the west. He got out of the car. Even though the alcohol that morning had made him weak, he did feel better. He saw that he was at one corner of the Forbidden City. The setting sun shone on the ancient palace and turned into bright gold ripples in the moat. In his eyes, the world became, once again, classical and stable. Wang sat until it got dark, enjoying the peace that had been missing from his life. The black Volkswagen Santana that he was now so familiar with pulled out of the traffic streaming through the street and braked to a stop right in front of him. ShuiJiao got out of the car. "Slept well?" Da Shi growled. "Yes. What next?" "Oh, you? Go have dinner. Then drink a little more. Then sleep again." "Then what?" "Then? Don't you have to go to work tomorrow?" "But the countdown. There's only 1,091 hours left." "Fuck the countdown. Your first priority right now is to make sure you can stand straight and not collapse into a heap. Then we can talk about other things." Da Shi, can you tell me something about what's really going on? I'm begging you. Da Shi stared at Wang a while. Then he laughed. "I've said the very same thing to General Chung several times. We're in the same boat, you and I. I'll be honest. I know fucking shit. My pay grade is too low, and they tell me nothing. Sometimes, I think this is a nightmare. But you must know more than I." "Fine. I'll tell you what little I know." Da Shi pointed to the shore of the moat around the Forbidden City. The two found a spot and sat down. It was now night, and traffic flowed ceaselessly behind them like a river. They watched their shadows lengthening and shortening over the moat. "In my line of work, it's all about putting together many apparently unconnected things. When you piece them together the right way, you get the truth. For a while now, strange things have been happening. For example, there's been an unprecedented wave of crimes against academia and science research institutions. Of course, you know about the explosion at the Liangxiang Accelerator construction site. There was also the murder of that Nobel laureate. The crimes were all unusual. Not for money, not for revenge. No political background, just pure destruction. Other strange things didn't involve crimes. For example, the frontiers of science and the suicides of those academics. Environmental activists have also become extra bold. Protest mobs at construction sites to stop nuclear power plants and hydroelectric dams. Experimental communities returning to nature. And other apparently trivial matters. Do you go to the movies? No, not really. Recent big-budget films all have rustic themes. The setting is always green mountains and clear water, with handsome men and pretty women of some indeterminate era living in harmony with nature. To use the words of the directors, they represent the beautiful life before science spoiled nature. Take Peach Blossom Spring. It's clearly the sort of film that no one wants to see, but they spent hundreds of millions to make it. There was also this science fiction contest with the top reward of $5 million for the person who imagined the most disgusting possible future. They spent another few $100 million to turn the winning stories into movies. And then you've got all these strange cults popping up everywhere, where every cult leader seems to have a lot of money. What does that last bit have to do with everything you mentioned before? You have to connect all the dots. Of course, I didn't need to busy myself with such concerns before, but after I was transferred from the crime unit to the Battle Command Center, it became part of my job. Even General Chung is impressed by my talent for connecting the dots. And your conclusion? Everything that's happening is is coordinated by someone behind the scenes with one goal: to completely ruin scientific research. Who? I have no idea, but I can sense the plan. A very comprehensive, intricate plan. Damage scientific research installations, kill scientists, drive scientists like you crazy and make you commit suicide. But the main goal is to misdirect your thoughts until you're even more foolish than ordinary people. Your last statement is really perceptive. At the same time, they want to ruin science's reputation in society. Of course, some people have always engaged in anti-science activities, but now it's coordinated. I believe it. Now you believe me. So many of you scientific elites couldn't figure it out, and I, having gone only to vocational school, had the answer. After I explained my theory, the scholars and my bosses all ridiculed it. If you had told me your theory back then, I'm sure I wouldn't have laughed at you. Take those frauds who practice pseudoscience. Do you know who they're most afraid of? Scientists, of course. No. Many of the best scientists can be fooled by pseudoscience, and sometimes devote their lives to it. But pseudoscience is afraid of one particular type of people who are very hard to fool. Stage magicians. In fact, many pseudoscientific hoaxes were exposed by stage magicians. Compared to the bookworms of the scientific world, your experience as a cop makes you far more likely to perceive such a large-scale conspiracy. Well, there are plenty of people smarter than me. People in positions of power well aware of the plot. When they ridiculed me at first, it was only because I wasn't explaining my theory to the right people. Later on, my old company commander, General Chung, had me transferred. But I'm still not doing anything other than running errands. That's it. Now you know as much as I do. Another question. What does this have to do with the military? I was baffled too. I asked them, and they said that now that there's a war, of course the military would be involved.
Step one.
I was
Step
like
two.
you, thinking that they were talking nonsense. But no, they weren't joking. The Army really is on high alert. There are 20-some battle command centers like ours around the globe. And above them, there's another level of command structure. But no one knows the details. Who's the enemy? No idea. NATO officers are now stationed in the war room of the PLA General Staff Department, and a bunch of PLA officers are working out of the Pentagon. Who the fuck knows who we're fighting? This is all so bizarre. Are you sure it's all true? A bunch of my old buddies from the Army are now generals, so I know a few things. The media has no idea about any of this. That's another thing. All the countries are keeping a tight lid on this, and they've been successful so far. I can guarantee you that the enemy is incredibly powerful. Those in charge are terrified. I know General Chung very well. He's the sort who's afraid of nothing, not even the sky falling. But I can tell that he's worried about something much worse right now. They're all scared out of their wits, and they have no confidence that we'll win. If what you say is true, then we should all be frightened. Everyone is afraid of something. The enemy must be too. The more powerful they are, the more they have to lose to their fears. What do you think the enemy is afraid of? You! Scientists! The odd thing is that the less practical your research research is, the more they're afraid of you. Like abstract theories, the kind of thing young Dong worked on. They're more frightened of such work than you are of the universe winking at you. That's why they're so ruthless. If killing you would solve the problem, you'd all be dead by now. But the most effective technique remains disrupting your thoughts. When a scientist dies, another will take his place. But if his thoughts are confused, then science is over. You're saying they're afraid of fundamental science? Yes, fundamental science. But my research is very different in nature from Young Dong's. The nanomaterial I work on isn't fundamental science. It's just a very strong material. What's the threat to them? You're a special case. Usually they don't bother those engaged in applied research. Maybe the material you're developing really scares them. Then what should I do? Go to work. Keep up your research. That's the best way to strike back at them. Don't worry about that shitty countdown. If you want to relax a bit after work, play that game. If you can beat it, that might help. That game. Three body? You think it's connected to all this? Definitely connected. I know that several specialists at the Battle Command Center are playing it too. It's no ordinary game. Someone like me, fearless, out of ignorance, can't play it. It has to be someone knowledgeable like you. Anything else? No. But if I find out more, I'll let you know. Keep your phone on, buddy. Keep your head screwed on straight. And if you get scared again, just remember my ultimate rule. Da Shi drove away before Wong had a chance to thank him. 11. Three body. Mo Tzu and fiery flames. Wong Miao returned home, stopping on the way to buy a V-suit. His wife told him that people from work had been trying to get a hold of him all day. Wong turned on his phone, checked his messages, and returned a few calls. He promised he'd be at work tomorrow. At dinner, he followed Da Shi's advice and drank some more. But he didn't feel sleepy. After his wife went to bed, he sat in front of the computer, put on his new V-suit, and logged into Three Body.
Wow.
Desolate plain at dawn. Wong stood in front of King Zhou's pyramid. The snow that had once covered it was gone, and the blocks of stone were pockmarked by erosion. The ground was now a different color. In the distance were a few massive buildings that Wong guessed were dehydratories, but they were of a different design than the ones he had seen last time. Everything told him that eons had passed. By the faint dawn light, Wong looked for the entrance. When he found it, he saw that the opening had been sealed by blocks of stone. But next to it, there was now a staircase carved into the pyramid, leading all the way to the apex. He looked up and saw that the top had been flattened into a platform. The pyramid, once Egyptian in style, now resembled an Aztec one. Wong climbed up the stairs and reached the apex. The platform looked like an ancient astronomical observatory. In one corner was a telescope several meters high, and next to it were a few smaller telescopes. In another corner were a few strange instruments that reminded him of ancient Chinese armillary spheres, models of objects in the sky. His attention was drawn to the large copper sphere in the center of the platform. 2 meters in diameter, it was set on top of a complex machine. Propelled by countless gears, the sphere slowly rotated. Wong noticed that the direction and speed of its rotation constantly shifted. Below the machine was a large square cavity. By the faint torchlight within, Wong saw a few slave-like figures pushing a spoked horizontal wheel, which provided the power to the machine above. A man walked toward Wang. Like King Wen, when Wang had first encountered him, the man had his back against the sliver of light on the horizon, and he appeared to Wang as a pair of bright eyes floating in the darkness. He was slender and tall, dressed in a flowing black robe, his hair carelessly knotted on top of his head, with a few strands waving in the wind. "Hello," the man said. "I'm Mach. Hello, I'm Hiren." "Ah, I know you." Mach grew excited. "You were a follower of King Wen back in civilization number 137. I did follow him here, but I never believed his theories." "You're right." Mach nodded at Wang solemnly. Then he moved closer. "During the 362,000 years you've been away, civilization has been reborn 4 more times. The civilization struggled to develop through the irregular alternation of chaotic eras and stable eras. The shortest-lived one got only halfway through the Stone Age, but civilization number 139 broke a record and developed all the way to the Steam Age. You're saying that people from that civilization found the laws governing the sun's motion?" Mach laughed and shook his head. "Not at all. They were just lucky. But the effort to do so has never ceased. Of course not. Come, let us see the efforts of the last civilization." Mach led Wang to a corner of the observatory platform. The ground spread out beneath them like an ancient piece of leather.
All right, that's the time we have for today. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.